Thank you and welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I want to welcome the Mayor who's in attendance, and also want to welcome Councillor Coulson who was here on behalf of Tony. So welcome everyone. Just want to start to say that we've been quite busy since we last met. We're in the middle of agreeing a memorandum of understanding with the Audit and Governance Committee, which will provide a clear distinction between the way the two committees work. We're hoping to have a draft for that agreement in January. Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, and obviously the draft will come to this committee before to be agreed before it's set. We've also got me and Rachel have got a meeting with the chair of the Improvement Board, Rob, coming up, and we've also agreed informal meetings with the 3 Development Corporation chairs, and we'll move on from there. Apologies for absence.
I'll just quickly put a reminder in as well. If you use the microphones, can you please switch them off afterwards just to prevent the feedback? For apologies, we've had Councillor Nightingale and Councillor Riordan. As you've already said, Councillor Coulson is attending on his behalf.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are we all ready? Thank you. Minutes of the meeting held the 15th of October. Can we approve your record?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sonia and obviously, sadly, the Mayor put in apologies on the 15th of October, so we agreed some questions that were put in writing to the Mayor, who thankfully has responded. Has anybody got any queries with the answers that the Mayor provided? Lynn?
Yeah, the answer...
Can you turn the microphone on, please?
It's on.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah. So the answer on the airport was quite vague. So what I was asking was, I wasn't quite sure how much loans we'd actually given to the airport, but it was around, there was no detail on it. Just basically the answer said it's like going to a bank, I'll pay back when I get some money, and that was basically the answer I got back. It was when we make a profit we'll start paying back. That's all well and good, but I think there needs to be more detail for scrutiny when they ask questions. But my other one is the social value. So Connor kindly sent me information on the social value, on what social value we will get from contracts that we give out, and it basically, what I can read, if I've got all the information that I needed, there was meetings going on. I think Matt Story chaired them at the time, and it does mention social value, but then it says there's a working group that took place to try and look into it in more detail, because the online portal didn't seem to be working quite right, so there was some internal work going on. But then it stopped, so it says last minutes of the meeting was February 24. We will set up a working group to look more closely on how we can benefit from social value, and then there's nothing. So I don't know whether I'm missing details, or we have got a working group, we have got some information behind to say this contract created 20 apprentices plus this, plus that. Do you know what I mean? There's no information. It says, your answer says there is work going on and you do your best. There's no detail, there's no like spreadsheets or anything.
Is this more broadly across the organisation?
This is really on the grants and loans we give out. What do you know, like in council we have a 106.
Yeah. Sorry, I just meant more broadly rather than a specific kind of part of the organisation.
Come back on the social value side.
I mean, if you want to go first, Conor, and I can.
So I'm meeting with the procurement team today, Councillor Pallister, to discuss all the questions you've raised. So I'm going to try and get all the information across to you today after that meeting on those areas, because they do have trackers. I just need to get the information pulled off. It was just a bit of a challenge of finding the handover because the officer responsible has since left. So we're just going through those details to make sure we get the right answers across to you for that.
Thank you.
I think I suppose to try and give an answer today, I'm sure Conor will come back to you if he says he's going to come back to you, is the way that, and we did this years ago, must have been 2018, 2019, is when there is any contracts that we procure as an organisation, say we, I mean TDC, STDC, HDC, MDC, etc. We allocate 20% of the award of a contract to social value. And I remember, this is many years ago, the legal advice we got was that that was the maximum we could attribute to the award of a contract without it becoming questionable from a procurement point of view. And so across all of the organisations we attribute 20% value. That, as I am aware, can be done in various different ways. So one of the things that I was keen to capture as part of social value was local jobs, because often we could award a contract to somebody, and you know, I've seen councils over the years do this where they bring in a big national firm, people come in, they tend not to be from the local area, they deliver the outcomes that the council want, right? They service the contract, but actually some of those firms could be better at using some of their local talent or recruiting locally or apprentices or whatever it might be. On shorter contracts it's more difficult for apprenticeships, so the way that we tried to be creative with it was actually within that social responsibility part, local provision of that contract. So is it your local arm, if you're a national firm, that's delivering out of your, say, Hartlepool base or your Stockton base because you've got a business there, or are you actually getting it from Liverpool because you've got a base over there? Yeah. So social value we include as part of that, and also we track the jobs element as well, so making sure that people who are actually local, employed locally with local postcodes as their residence address is also captured as part of that. The other thing that it also does in the procurement process is local firms are given, I think, a fair chance of winning those contracts. So if you have a national firm that might be procuring to do some sort of infrastructure project, if you're a local contractor, so you are a local firm based in the area employing local people, then you're more likely to score much higher on that 20%, which we've seen. You know, so if you take the work we've done at the airport, you take South East Development Corporation, for instance, where a lot of the infrastructure work goes on, a significant number of the contracts that we've delivered over the last however many years that have been our responsibility have been local contractors, whether that's people like MGL, whether it's people like ZTL, you know, the SNAO building the hangars here, just based down the road. The list is quite a long one, so that's how we've done it in the past. One of the things that the team, I know, are working on, which is why the answer's a bit vague, because we're not quite there yet, but we are more or less there, is there's also a financial contribution on the bigger contracts that we might not be responsible for. So if you look at, for example, Net Zero Teesside that have started construction, you know, that's at least a £4 billion contract, probably much more than that. You've got Balfour Beatties and Technip as the two main contractors. They, as part of their contracts with BP and NZT, have a social value requirement in that. And what often historically happens is they will have a national team that's responsible for that budget. Often is assigned, strangely enough, to their kind of marketing team within, you know, their head office in London or wherever it might be. Yeah. And they come into an area and they've got some money and they don't really understand the local area and how to distribute that to make sure it attacks and combats the local challenges that we have that are going to be different from other areas. And so what we're setting up is kind of I can't remember what we've named it now, but it's basically a mayoral social value fund where we're saying to those businesses, we understand the local area best. So if you have an allocation, say it's BP, I'm making it up at the minute, but let's say it's £1 million, give that money to the social value fund. We're partnering with a Teesside charity to deliver it on our behalf because they're set up as a charity, they have the right objectives within their charity, they understand even much better than the combined authority, and I suspect many local authorities, the real issues within the community across Teesside. We have some outcomes that we want to achieve that we think are really important, whether it's around, you know, deprivation, poverty, etc., and they in effect will deploy that on our behalf. So what we're saying to businesses, don't overcomplicate it, give us the money, we'll deliver you the outcomes you need in your social contract budgets as well, but we've got really fantastic local partners to deal with that. So there is that bit of work going on, which is why there was some vagueness in the answer, but hopefully hopefully that gives you a fuller answer, and again, if there's any supplementary to that, we can take that offline and give you a written answer in between.
That's great, thanks Ben.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
Can I ask, how are we tracking that, the social value? Do we keep a record of it, and have we got it tracked, and is it down on the website, or?
So on the second bit around the numerical social value fund, I forget the actual name of it, that's being set up at the moment, and there are a couple of businesses, you know, I won't name them yet because they haven't signed up and agreed to it, but there are a couple of businesses that are looking at providing a substantial amount of money to go into that will go through to the Teesside charity that will administer it on behalf of TVCA. So that is yet to be done, that's only just starting. So it's fair to say that's not there yet. I suspect it would be really helpful to this committee, but obviously for me as well, that we capture that information, because we want to make sure that the money that we're getting from these businesses and using with Teesside Charity is being used effectively and delivering the outcomes we want. There is not a huge amount that we can do to influence that unless we set up our own charity and appointed directors, which is cumbersome and not something we want to do, particularly to compete with somebody like Teesside Charity that's been doing great work for lots of years. But there is some soft influence we could have if we were to make recommendations to Teesside Charity about the types of things we would like to see it go into. That might be something the committee, you know, might have a view on. And then as this gets set up, I'm sure the committee will want to scrutinise how we record that to make sure how much money is coming in, so how much are we actually capturing in social value from a financial point of view, and what is that delivering on the ground through that mechanism. So at the moment, it's not done. There are some numbers on the local business contracting side and the local job side, and if you look, that has been published. So for example, if you look at Sea Wind, we worked very, very closely with them on the construction of their facility. Those were not contracts we had control over. So again, there's a way in how you capture some of this, because people would say, well, that's a contract issued by Sea Wind. Well, actually, if you knew what went on behind the scenes for us to softly influence and put forward local contractors, the likes of ZTL and MGL and others, and Thompson's who do fantastic work, and K2 are obviously the main contractor on that, who are based out of Middlesbrough now. The numbers will be slightly wrong, forgive me, but they're not far away. Something like 3/4 of people that worked on that job to build the £1.4 billion facility lived within the Tees Valley. I think that number goes up to more than 90% if you take in the wider northeast. And again, the number of local contractors is, you know, significant. We'll get you the numbers, but it's very, very high. So that is tracked on those types of projects to make sure that local people can see local people are getting opportunities and local businesses are getting opportunities. Could that be recorded better? I mean, there isn't a single database that I can see that tracks that throughout. But rather than saying it's not there, if you don't mind, Chair, we'll take it away and we'll come back with an answer to that.
Thank you. Councillor Beale?
Is that on?
Yeah.
Thank you. Ben, I was a little bit disappointed and somewhat taken aback by the brevity of the question, of the response to the question I raised. I genuinely thought, you know, coming from a local government background where where council leaders and cabinet members take questions regularly and give answers, rather than just being almost fobbed off by saying find it somewhere else. I still haven't been able to find it from anywhere else, so I wonder if you could facilitate getting that information that I requested through that route.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in the answer, happy to facilitate that through the finance team, and I would also suggest we will do that, but obviously there's the alternative, obviously through Stockton Council as a shareholder and your representative on the board who has full access to all of that information, and rightly so as a director on the airport board. I personally don't have access to that information directly because I am not and have never been on the airport board, and so it's not appropriate for somebody to have that information as an operational business director We have it at a macro level at TVCA as we provide loans to the organisation, and those have been published and provided to ONS previously through our budgets and financial reports. But absolutely, we will speak to finance and give you a more detailed breakdown if that's possible.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a line-by-line account. All I wanted to know, just as Councillor Palliser did, was how much is the combined authority lent to the airport. That should be information within the combined authority and available to the public. And I'm sure it has been made available in the past. And then how much are we paying, the combined authority paying to be here? And it just seems to me that it's worthy to know that, because I'm led to believe through the osmosis that takes place in communication sometimes, that in fact there is no repayment on the loan so far, but we're paying somebody who owes us money, and I'm just trying to get my head around the sense of that.
I don't know the answer to your second question, Councillor Beale. I apologise for that. That's really a question for the Head of Paid Services, who has sole responsibility for management of staff, location of offices, etc. So maybe the Head of Paid Services.
Can I answer that? We've already asked the Director of Finance these questions, and we're waiting for a reply. So hopefully we'll have one soon on them. Tom?
Yeah, I'll speak to our Director of Finance and we'll make sure you get a response in a timely manner. The other thing I just referenced is we're doing a lot of work with Cabinet around our budget setting, so we've been talking to them about this information, but I'll absolutely get you a response, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Nelson?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of brief points. One, I agree with Councillor Beale in terms of the brevity of the Mayor's response to my question. Can I offer my thanks through to Tom, who's recently given us a much more up-to-date situation where we are with the audited accounts, and thank you for that, Tom. Appreciate that. If I may, can I just go back in terms of social value that Councillor Palliser was raising and ask of them there. I'm fully aware of the good works that's done by the Teesside charity, but in terms of the mayoral social value fund or whatever banner it goes under, could you perhaps involve other infrastructure organisations in the wider Tees Valley area? I'm aware of people like Catalyst in Stockton-on-Tees, of Hops in Hartlepool, whose work is not restricted to charities, which I think Teesside charity perhaps is, but is to that wider social enterprise economy, it's to that wider local community groups. And I think I fully recognise that the social impact of jobs, apprenticeships and training is absolutely vital, and I recognise the good work being done there. I think the social value within our community throughout Tees Valley needs to be demonstrated as well in terms of commissioning and procurement. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor, and I would say that the reason it was agreed that in effect we would deliver that function through Teesside Charity is that the advice, when we came up with the concept, the advice I got back from officers was that because of the length of time it would take to set up a charity, in this day and age it takes a ridiculously long time to be able to set up separate bank accounts, to go through appointing in effect trustees, the management of that. There was some suggestion, I apologise if this is wrong, but I think there was some suggestion around some involvement with the FCA as well as with managing funds. It was decided that trying to do it via an established organisation that already had that in place and was well established and trusted was a quicker and more effective way to be able to deliver that social value. Again, you're absolutely right, Councillor, outside of even the kind of the jobs and the investment side. But if you look at the work, which I'm sure you're already acutely aware of, the Teesside Charity do around things like deprivation, knife crime, interventions with families with very difficult, complex needs, both parents and children within those settings, broken families, addiction, etc., etc. We said that there wasn't a better organisation that was already established that we could deliver that through, and so being able to capture this soon, rather than, for example, an NZT who are ready to go wanting to deploy that money, missing out on I say missing out, not having the ability to influence that millions of pounds and leaving it to the BP corporate machine to decide where it should go locally, albeit I'm sure they would spend it relatively wisely. We feel like we can get more bang for the buck by doing it that way. I'll take that away, Councillor. I'm not sure, and I don't know, and I haven't asked the question as to whether that does exclude the use of other third sector organisations, but happy to take that away and see whether we can add them in, or they can work with the Teesside charity to be able to gain access and have an influence on that one.
Thank you, I look forward to that.
Councillor Branson?
Thank you. Right, okay, thanks. Is this on?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, by the way, for the reply to my question. The first one, I think you did mention, you did answer, which was about Tees Flex. Although I don't know when the figures are coming, but presumably we'll get those soon. The second question, however, which I didn't really get an answer to, was what the performance targets are for transport connectivity in Teesside. Now, what we're looking at is things like how many people are using buses, trains, how many journeys are carried out within the area in any particular year. There's a number of possible measures we could use here. But if we've got a strategy, we need to have some kind of targets that we're monitoring against. I just wondered whether we had those. If so, where does that?
I think because of the timing of the question, Councillor, and I apologise for not being able to answer the second question, is that we're going through that process really as we speak on a number of fronts, on the continuing services and the re-procurement of a number of services, which also involves, therefore, the establishment by Cabinet collectively to set what the outcomes we're trying to achieve and what do we want from our public transport services over the next period of time. So linked to obviously the £1 billion infrastructure project is one thing around transport, but that's very much capital led. Mm-hmm. We then have the bus services improvement money, which is the only revenue money that we have to be able to support any public transport services, which we were told in the spending review we were getting, but we're yet to have confirmed the amount of that, which we are hoping to get in the next couple of weeks. We suspect that will be announced at the budget. We're hoping to find out whether that's another single-year settlement or hopefully it's a 3-year settlement. We're hopeful that it will be a 3-year settlement for allow us to plan better on the buses side. There is a requirement because of the nature of the procured contract with Stagecoach on Tees Flex that if Cabinet decides to continue with Tees Flex, which is a decision that will have to be made by Cabinet, that will have to be re-procured. So that will have to go out to open re-procurement for other operators to be able to potentially bid for that service. So all of this, I'm really genuinely not trying to be difficult on this, all of this is in so much flux. We just don't have the answer to that yet. And I know that work is being done by officers to be able to present the paper to Cabinet in advance of the Cabinet on the 12th of December, so that Cabinet can have a genuine discussion about what it wants to see as its priorities. Tees Flex obviously would account for over £1 million of the money from the Bus Services Improvement Plan. I think, obviously, people know my views on it. I think Tees Flex is a really valuable service that connects unconnected communities outside of traditional bus networks. I'm aware that within Cabinet there is a question as to whether that money might be better spent on more fixed bus routes. And it sounds from both the Transport Committee and I think ONS, I've heard, also have differing views on how that might be, and that's perfectly acceptable. But we have to come to a view on, if we're spending it on Tees Flex and we're re-procuring it, Cabinet have to make that decision. If we're not, then that will release other money to go into other revenue for other more traditional bus services. But what does that mean for the people that are no longer being served by Tees Flex? But all of that is linked, and even the agreement to extend Tees Flex and re-procure Tees Flex as a service goes back to the basic question, Council, which is the question you've asked, which we are still yet to answer collectively, of what are we trying to achieve as our targets? And so, if we were sat here at the next overview of Scrutiny meeting next month, or if the Transport Director or Tom was to come back, we would have that answer of what those targets would be, and also what had been agreed by Cabinet about setting those targets. So then, Overview and Scrutiny would have that information to scrutinise once we've taken that decision. The answer, Julie, is that we are going through the process and we haven't yet made the decision, so there's no information to give you at the minute, but we will have it in the coming weeks.
So yeah, I'd be grateful if you could pass that information on to me
Absolutely.
as soon as possible, because I would like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
How can we tell if Tees Flex has been is beneficial to the Tees Valley if we don't have the cost per person and what the transport figures are?
Yeah, so I don't have the figures to hand, but I know that those figures are being put together to help inform Cabinet about the decision they have to make. And so Tees Flex will be compared on a like-for-like basis with other subsidised services that we're already providing. And so there will be tables and data presented to Cabinet, and then there'll be a discussion around prioritisation. So once Cabinet have that, which we haven't yet got formally, there will be, I think there's a meeting next week or the week after with Cabinet colleagues and leaders to go through that. That will then inform a paper that's going to Cabinet for a decision on the 12th of December. And obviously at that stage, ONS will be given that information. But again, going back to the point, we don't have that information.
Ben mentioned this as well, there's been a lot of discussions with Transport Committee, so they've been sort of talking this through probably for the last 3 to 4 months, so there is a lot of focus on that Transport Committee, on all of that work that Ben's just outlined.
Yeah, they've done an awful lot, and I suppose giving thanks to Stephen Harker actually, who's done a great job over the last few months with the Transport Committee, and the last briefing we had with other leaders, Councillor Harker's view was that there was actually a very split view on the Transport Committee about Tees Flex in particular, never mind the wider transport network. So I suspect there'll be many differing views. Like I said, for what it's worth, my recommendation, subject to seeing the numbers, but my gut feeling and recommendation is that we should be continuing with Tees Flex given the communities that it helps. But again, I'm just one voice, and as you all know, even if I want that to continue, if the other leaders don't want that to continue, because it's an active decision to re-procure, the service is ending at the end of March. So if we can't get agreement at Cabinet to renew it, then it won't go ahead. So, you know, there are going to be some discussions and difficult discussions to have over the coming weeks as to whether, one, Tees Flex is extended, of which obviously I'm recommending it should be, but two, the much broad, we're a bit like Transport for the North here. I find Transport for the North is obsessed with rail, and to some extent rightly so. It feels like a lot of our transport conversations, and yes, importantly so, are just about buses, but actually there's much more to our public transport infrastructure than buses as well. So it's a complicated picture which doesn't just talk about this, we talk about buses a lot, but I think what Councillor Branson was talking about was actually this is about transport in general, and what are our targets and what are we actually trying to deliver, and buses are part of that, but the conversations we're having are about transport in general, not just about bus services. So I think it's worth letting councillors know that it's a much broader transport discussion.
Can I ask, on the Cabinet meeting on the 12th of December, if the majority of the Cabinet decide to go against your recommendations on remaining with Tees Flex, would you be using your power of veto?
So I suppose it's worth, Councillor, to just clarify exactly the process on that. And we've got Connie here, so if I get this wrong, I'm sure he'll jump in. But the Tees Flex service expires at the end of March. Yeah. We have procured it to that extent. So it takes an active decision of agreement by Cabinet to renew Tees Flex. And that would mean it would have to go out to procurement, and any operators could come in and bid to do that work. And obviously there'd be an appropriate procurement process, and whoever's successful would then run that service going forward. So it requires not a decision to stop, because it's already stopping at the end of March, because that's the decision that Cabinet has previously taken. It requires an active approval to continue. So, sorry to belabor the point, but what that basically means is, for Tees Flex to continue, it requires the majority of Cabinet to vote in favour of its extension. Okay. If I vote for it, and the majority of Cabinet vote against it, then it can't go ahead. And I suppose it goes back to the point, the mayoral veto is a negative veto in that nothing can happen without the mayoral support. But as mayor, other than separate mayoral powers, of which this isn't one, I can't do anything unless I get the majority support of the leaders. So, I mean, in short, Chairman and Councillor, I will be supporting Tees Flex. It will be up to the leaders as to whether they want to vote against it or not. And again, that will be informed by them with the data and decisions And I say that, but actually all leaders have been really constructive in the way that they've come forward about it, but it will be for them to decide whether they want to vote for or against it. If they vote against it, it stops. If they vote for it, it continues, with all of the implications that has on our wider transport revenue budget.
That's perfect, so thanks for clearing that up.
Could I just ask what the timescale is for that? Because if it's due in March, it doesn't seem to have a long running time if you have to recommission.
That's a really good question, Councillor. So there was a meeting, an informal meeting of leaders, I think it was last week or the week before, where this was discussed at a high level, and informally what we all collectively agreed is that the paperwork for the re-procurement of Tees works should start, because it doesn't commit us to delivering it. But had we not taken that decision, I think it was 2 weeks ago, even if Cabinet agreed to extend Tees Flex, it would be impossible to re-procure that service by the end of March, so there would be a gap of maybe 4, 6, 8 weeks, which obviously nobody wants because that has impacts on services and usage and drop-off and people reusing, etc. So the advice we got from officers, and all leaders, including myself, agreed was that let's start the procurement process, which is basically a matrix that you submit. It doesn't cost anything. That was a question that all of the leaders asked. It doesn't cost anything because we've already drafted it. There's like a couple of hours of officer time internally to start that. And if on the 12th of December, with all of that informed information, the leaders decide to vote against extending Tees Flex, then that procurement just stops and it will just fall away. But if they approve it, it then means that the service can be re-procured and operational by the end of March. So you pick up on an excellent point, Councillor, and that's how we've dealt with it.
And is there any provision for a short extension if you can't achieve it in that timescale?
We were told not, because of the nature of the procurement, we couldn't then extend beyond the procured time frame, so it would have to end.
Some contracts
Yeah, some do, but unfortunately I don't think this, but we were told this one doesn't, so it would be a stop at the end of March if it wasn't, if that process didn't start. But I suppose just to be extra clear with everybody, if on the 12th of December it's voted down, then that procurement just falls away, and it hasn't cost us anything, but it's just saved us that gap if we did approve it, so we would have continuity of service.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. I've got a few questions.
Excellent, Chair.
Councillor Moorish, who was a stand-in in the last committee, asked the question, I think it's question 6, regarding some buildings in the MDC area. His suggestion was art performance, etc., etc. And it's interesting, your answer. No decisions have yet been taken. What's the timetable for these decisions to be taken? Do we know?
Yeah, so I'd also like to further clarify, it's okay, Chair. So I'll be honest, and I'm happy to be corrected by Councillor Moorish or anybody else. I don't remember mooting the idea for a dedicated performance art centre. I think more broadly in the creative industries, which is obviously a huge priority of the combined authority and all of the local authorities, there is a wish to try and grow the creative sector, whether that's in digital, entrepreneurs, it might be in performing arts, but it's much more broadly than performing arts. So I don't want to mislead councillors, there is no commitment for me to do a performing arts centre, it wouldn't make any particular sense. So my response was really about what is actually happening. So there has been an allocation in the investment zone money which we've secured from government, the first tranche, which is £80 million. And there is a notional allocation, albeit no decisions have been made, which is the purpose of the answer, within the investment zone money to allocate £10 million towards House of Fraser. Now, we are currently going through the process, and officers here are pulling together plans, working with what was Brenda Harrison, now obviously Pam Hargreaves is leader of Hartlepool, who's the portfolio lead, pulling together the suggested programme for the £80 million spend on the investment zones, of which Cabinet have already agreed the majority of that should be spent in Middlesbrough and Hartlepool as a principle. But now what we need to do is actually define the programmes and the projects rather than it just being a broad allocation. And so the decision is yet to be made. We were hoping, and I'm still hoping, that it might come to Cabinet on the 12th of December. I am told, actually just in the last 48 hours, there is a chance that that might not happen. It might be at the next Cabinet meeting in the new year, but that programme is being worked up as we speak, being led by the portfolio leader now, Pam Hargreaves. And that will also then clear up whether the notional allocation is a real allocation or whether that £10 million will be reallocated or actually allocated to what we think is a more appropriate project. So, to be frank, it's still up in the air.
Okay, thank you. Moving to Councillor Nightingale's question regarding you speaking to constituents and authorities. I'm going to try and be a little bit loose on this question. Does the Mayor believe that chairs of male development corporations, which have obviously you've set up, should attend constituent authority scrutiny committees?
So just to reiterate the answer from before, I mean, I'm happy to speak to anybody, and I do when I'm out in community groups and I speak to councillors, and actually it was the new leader of Hartlepool, Pam Hargreaves, who invited me along. I apologise to Hartlepool councillors, I still don't quite understand your setup because it's different to all the other councils, but you have like a committee of chairs of committees?
Yeah, we don't have a cabinet, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you go to the policy chairs committee.
that's right, yeah, okay.
Not all members.
Councillors kept me right there, absolutely. So I have been invited in effect to address the chairs of those committees as part of the policy group. Much better set up by the councillor who's just said that. It's the first time it's properly been offered to go and speak to a cabinet or the leadership or others in the council. There was a process when we set up the Mayoral Development Corporation in Middlesbrough, where I was asked at the time to go and speak at a members forum to kind of present and discuss the set of the Middlesbrough Development Corporation, which we did, and some councillors, probably about a third of councillors, turned up for that. It's just rare that it happens. I suppose to answer the second question, Chair, and this really, again, is probably more appropriately addressed to the monitoring officer, but my understanding is, so I apologise if this is wrong, but I would ask the Chair probably to get formal advice from the monitoring officer on this. But when I've asked about the development corporations, obviously with me standing down in new guidance from government and the legislation, etc., mayoral development corporations are in effect the delivery arm, and it's been really helpful having the new monitoring officer in who's given real clarity to this, from me anyway, but please, the committee should seek their own clarity, that the mayoral development corporations are there to deliver on the strategic objectives of the mayor. And so it is the mayor that sets, in effect, what the development corporation should be working on. It's not for TVCA cabinet, it's a mayoral development corporation's mayoral power, and that's something I should do. If you look at TVCA as an equivalent, TVCA cabinet sets the strategic priorities for the organisation, i.e. decisions are made by cabinet, and then that's what the organisation delivers. The board of the development corporation, as I understand, is there to deliver on those priorities, so they are accountable to me as mayor as to whether they deliver on those priorities or not, and I should be holding them to account to make sure that they're delivering on those priorities, and if they're not, why not? And it's for TVCA, particularly overview and scrutiny, to hold me to account on the delivery of those development corporations. I know that's a long and convoluted answer, but on that basis, the monitoring officer has told me that it really is for ONS to hold me to account to the development corporations and not individual members or chairmen of development corporations. Now, I would suggest if that is true and that's what I've been told, then you would be challenging me on maybe why I haven't held the chairman of a development corporation to account, or why I haven't asked them to do A, B and C, or why haven't they done this. I understand that's the appropriate mechanism.
Yeah, I guess that's the reason why I asked the question. Obviously, it's your development corporation. I'm asking you if you think your shares, who you appointed, should attend constituent scrutiny committees.
No, I think on the basis of that advice that I've got from the monitoring officer is correct, which again, that's my reading of it from the monitoring officer, so if I'm wrong, I do think it's important that ONS get that directly from the monitoring officer, so you don't have to believe what comes out of my mouth, you can get the advice for yourself. Then no, the appropriate mechanism through government guidance and legislation is that I'm the one that is accountable. It lands on my shoulders, and I'm the one that ONS should be asking those questions of, and I should be providing those answers. And it's therefore my responsibility to make sure that I am holding the development corporations to account, so I can appropriately answer the questions from councillors around this table.
So can I ask, Hartlepool Development Corporation is doing work in Hartlepool, within the borough of Hartlepool. If Hartlepool Council have something that they're interested that's happening within their boundaries, should they be coming to you and asking you to scrutinise? And obviously it's there.
Well, there's also a separate mechanism, Chair, for council, because one of the requirements in law, and something that we went further on anyway than the law requires, is to make sure we have appropriate councillor representation from the borough. So obviously we have the leader of the council who's on both development corporations, obviously Councillor Cook and Councillor Hargreaves, previously Councillor Harrison. We also have Councillor Moore, who's on in Hartlepool, and Councillor Grange in Middlesbrough as well. So it only requires one representative from the council to be on. It doesn't actually require it to be the leader. It just requires a council representative. But we took the decision, and I personally took the decision, the leader should be on the committee, on the board. I also thought it was better to have additional representation, ideally from the second largest group, because then they have access to. And so I would say if there is a councillor who wants to have a direct conversation about the Development Corporation, by all means they're more than happy to contact me and write to me. But if they want a more kind of on the ground conversation, then obviously both leaders of those councils are available to their council, and both leaders are obviously held to account through their councils as well. So if Councillor Hargreaves, just as an example, is the one that's been mentioned, if councillors in Hartlepool want to ask questions and seek information about the Development Corporation, where appropriate, there'll be caveats, I'm sure, from statutory officers about what they can and can't say, but absolutely, Councillor Hargreaves can be, in any other policy way, can be asked to answer questions by Hartlepool Council, and in the same for Middlesbrough Council as well.
Can I come back on that? So previously, we've tried to attend meetings of the MDC, and this was when it was first set up, and we as local representatives tried to attend meetings and were roundly removed because everything was secret at that point. Am I hearing from you at the moment that that situation is changing then, that we will be able to attend meetings and freely attend meetings now?
So all councillors, as all members of the public, can attend any Development Corporation meeting. It's a public body in the way that any council meeting is a public meeting, and therefore members of the public can attend. If there are confidential items on a Development Corporation agenda, then councillors who are not on that committee do have to be treated in the same way as a member of the public, and that's the advice from the monitoring officer.
So my point is then that we attended meetings in the past and were removed at the start of the meeting because every single item on the agenda was private and confidential. So am I hearing from you that that is not the case anymore?
Well, I think since that time, I would say almost every item agenda, not everyone, but almost every item agenda is public now. There's been a huge rebalancing and a redressing of that to make sure that I suspect, well, it is fair to say that advice from officers led to an overly cautious approach to what was commercially sensitive. And I think both in all three development corporations, we've seen a huge readdressing of that balance. It doesn't mean that there won't be things that aren't commercially sensitive that come to board, which will have to exclude the public. But I think it's fair to say, if anybody has attended a development corporation board meeting recently, like I say, more than 95% of that meeting is public, with the exception of maybe one item that might be commercially sensitive, in the same way as any local council meeting has that process.
Okay, so my next question on this, sorry, it's really good to hear that things have improved and that there is a redress of that, and that's really positive to hear, and I'll be delighted to be attending the next meeting. But in terms of our role in scrutiny then, would we not have access, or could we not request access to those parts that were confidential as scrutiny lead sort of members?
You are testing my knowledge in the advice I've had from the monitoring officer. We will, if I could ask Chair, I'll ask through Ian Chair and through Tom as Chief Exec to get the advice from the monitoring officer on that question. I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
No, I think it would be useful.
I've got one final question, because I know that you need to be elsewhere, and that's on my question regarding the Turner Prize for MEMA. Since your response, I've since spoke to the Vice Chancellor at Teesside University, who told me that the TVCA first promised him quite a substantial amount of money towards the Turner Prize. The very disappointing that's changed. But you since said that you committed to support it to the same level as Middlesbrough Council. is that cast in stone?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I've heard from Middlesbrough Council that they may have to increase the funding to ensure this goes ahead.
So, just to be clear, I have never had a conversation with anybody.
No, not you personally.
No, but it's important, right? Because again, as we've already demonstrated, nothing can actively happen in this organisation without my approval. And obviously I need to take leaders on that journey with me if we want something to happen. The combined authority has never taken a decision, and I've never even had a conversation about providing support on the Turner Prize. I was more recently approached to say that I believe we're able to talk numbers. I don't think there's anything commercially sensitive in any of this. Middlesbrough Council had allocated £150,000 towards the ability for the Turner Prize to come to Middlesbrough. And I was approached by officers, actually it was Tom, as Chief Exec, to say that he would like to be able to match the £150,000 so that we are, in partnership and doing this together to be able to support it. I've never heard a suggestion that that might need to increase. I'm not sure we would be able to increase that amount of money, and whether it would be the right thing to do or not. But I would also make the proviso that £150,000 in itself is a lot of money. And Teesside University do lots of fantastic things, and they're doing lots of brilliant things in Middlesbrough Town Centre, not least the incredible new media building they built on their campus, which if anybody hasn't visited, I'm sure, even if you're not a Middlesbrough councillor, we could probably via TVCA arrange a visit. You should go and visit it. It's incredible. You should see it. Having said that, this is a Teesside University-led initiative. I think it would be great if we had the Turner Prize in Middlesbrough. And yes, we are keen to support it, which is why we've allocated £150,000 in the same way that Middlesbrough have. We also have to recognise that Teesside University has no debt and is sat on hundreds of millions of pounds of cash in the bank. And it's their project, and they're coming to the local taxpayer, both Middlesbrough Council, but Middlesbrough Council's around the room. Money is not awash at Middlesbrough Council at the moment. It's certainly not awash at TVCA either. I would be suggesting that if there is a need for additional funding, the university are more than capable of filling that gap. And I think any right-minded local taxpayer would think it is only appropriate that the university, who wants to put on a project that's their project, that they've attracted, that we're supporting, but they have no debt and hundreds of millions of pounds in the bank, can put a little bit more, can go a little bit deeper into their pocket to make sure that the event goes ahead. Would be my personal view.
Thank you. I'm quite happy with that response. Thank you. I want to thank the Mayor for attending. I know that he's got another meeting that you
Yes, apologies, thank you. And yeah, look forward to the next time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks everyone, appreciate your time. Thanks guys, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. We're going to number 5. Sadly, Jodie, the monitoring officer, has phoned in poorly this morning. I think he was trying to get online, but apparently he's really ill. Apparently, that's what I've been told. So we're going to try and continue on and get Connor to answer the questions that we might have on Article 4, Item 4, TVCA Constitution and decision making. So we've got this report, which I'll take as read. I presume we've all read it. And the recommendations that is that we consider the constitutional article and agree it. Has anyone got any questions? Quite a few. Right. We'll start with Councillor Hazelden.
Quick comment, Chair.
Yep.
I don't think we should agree it. I don't think we should approve it. I think we need to debate it with the officer.
Any reason?
Basically, after having looked at it, I don't feel it meets the requirements of the overall scrutiny review work ethics and programme. I think we need greater discussion and understanding of what the changes will mean and how it will affect the way we work.
Yep. I think it's quite a reasonable position to be in, I think. But you've got no questions on the...
I've got questions, but the officer's not here. And I don't want to put undue pressure on another officer. I just think this committee should be together, should look at this, and I think line by line on the recommendation. Because, I mean, I've read them a couple of times, and for want of a better word, I'm suspicious.
Well, it's quite a meeting report, there's lots of details in it.
Well, it just, how does that, why is that, how does that work, how will that work? Will that still allow us to do this, that and the other? And until I get clarity, it's nice to read the report. I think we should have a round the table discussion with the officer on it.
Okay.
To get clarity. We couldn't even get an explanation, or a fair explanation about the calling we had. We couldn't get a debate around that to understand the reasons behind that and why that thing. And the thing that stuck in my head this morning, and it's at the front, it says, anything is possible. And I'm thinking, is it? It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I'm not a great fan of that. Councillor Tweedy? Oh, sorry,
my head isn't particularly in the right place at the moment, Chair, for various reasons.
Yeah.
And I know Mr. Houghton is gone, and I've just sat and listened to him very intently to what he's had to say. And we're no wiser, I don't think. Well, I want to ask about the stuff I did, but we've heard no, I haven't heard a particular answer to a question that's been answered. He says he's responsible, but he doesn't know the answers. That's an officer. He's the main guy. The buck stops here on his head. I want to make sure we know what we're doing with this, and it sits in with how we feel it should be.
Will let Connor respond?
I think I'll just provide clarity in the way the recommendation is provided. It's to consider the proposed article in advance of it being published, proposed to Cabinet. The way it's read is that there isn't a general approval here, but what I've likely discussed with the Chair before this meeting is getting an informal session with Jody when he's better, well in advance of the Cabinet decision, to have these conversations where you have the specific concerns and would like the understanding. Obviously we can only answer so far as in our understanding of his intentions, and I appreciate your thoughts in having a secondary session, but I would suggest that's our best option. After this meeting, subject to it being better, I'll look to arrange an online session to get as many people in as possible to have this open forum conversation.
This is to go into Cabinet in December.
Yes, so the way in which it's proposed is that this is
like
facilitation.
4 weeks away from that.
Yeah, so the papers will, so the meeting of Cabinet's on the 12th of December, so the papers will be published the week before. So ideally, as you say, we need to get something in very quickly. I just can't promise that it will be this week because we're not sure if Jody will be returning this week, but we can get something set up for all members online when he's better to hash it out a couple of hours, have these conversations about the specifics of it and explain these items if that's preferred. Screw.
We'll have a round table and we'll see what we can conclude. Councillor Tweedy?
Yeah, I think basically we're not recommending to approve this today. I think that's what Connor's saying, is we're not approving it. All we're doing is we're considering it. I do think it would be useful for us to raise some of the issues that we have flagged up today, so that Jody is aware. But I do think it would be useful for us to have a session with Jody to when he's back, when he's better, because I think I've got quite a few questions as to where things have come from, or what's the thinking behind that, and I think, with all due respect to you, Connor, I'm not sure that you're going to have all the answers for my questions, so...
No, that's completely fine. I think one of the areas that might be helpful today is trying to gather generally what the ideas are so we can get them to Jody in advance.
Yeah.
So anything else that comes, the secondary questions as such, can be addressed in the meeting after he's responded to them. Because I think obviously if we take a 2-hour chunk, for example, if we're then asking everything live, it's then bringing the answers forward. But if we can get as much today, we can provide them similar to how we previously done questions. So
I think the other thing as well is that I think it's really important to remember that we're in a public meeting, and I think airing our questions and concerns in a public forum I think is really important as well. So I do think that's one of the reasons I think it is important that we don't just adjourn this for a private meeting. I think we should air our concerns and then yes, we can discuss them at a private meeting, that's fine, but I think it's really important.
Well, I'll just let Tom respond a little bit, and then I agree we should air our concerns now. We're in a public meeting, it's recorded.
Yeah, it's obviously unfortunate that Jodie's not here. He would have been, but he really isn't well. And this is about improvement and trying to make sure that the committee feels comfortable with their role. So if there are concerns, it's absolutely right that you air those and you have a chance to talk those through with Jodie, and he'd absolutely want that. I think that would be helpful if we can sort of try and get a sense of what those concerns and issues are. And Jodie can obviously look at that, and when he comes fully prepared in terms of how we can help you hopefully satisfy what those concerns are. Because this is absolutely about part of the improvement, and we want this committee to feel comfortable with what's being proposed before we go into Cabinet.
Yeah, let me just say that the recommendations that all key decisions from this authority will come to this committee, or at least to the committee members, because they'll be sent to us within 24 hours of the decisions being made. So obviously we're not meeting every 24 hours, so it'll be individual, we think. That's one of the things that we need to work out, the details on that. And the recommendations, key decisions are reduced to £500,000. Most of the combined authorities, I think, run at about £1 million. So Jodie's deliberately kept that low because of where the authority is in the improvement notice. So that may well increase as the improvement notice as we move away from that, but that's another decision to be made. My concern obviously is that the officers' scheme of delegation, which obviously we agree, or the Cabinet agrees to this, what Jodie's written here, that would have to be changed, because officers' scheme of delegation currently allows officers to make decisions of up to £1 million currently. I think that's with the Chief Exec's approval, but that then won't become a key decision, because key decisions must be made in Cabinet, I believe.
Yeah, so I think fundamentally we need to do a full review of the Constitution,
yeah,
and that's built into the work programme. Jodie feels that this issue needs to be addressed because it's such a priority issue sooner than that, and that's why he's brought this here today. So I think if we could try and just gather the committee's views and concerns, we'll take that away to Jodie, and then obviously Conor will then work to make sure that we give all the members an opportunity to sit down with Jodie and actually go through those.
Yeah, let's go for the concerns then, and then we can, Conor can take note of them to pass on to Jodie. Was that what you, Councillor Queen?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, thank you. So I think the first bit for me was on the governance and principles section. I think I was concerned about how the decision-making principles, put my teeth in, decision-making principles are monitored or will be monitored in practice to ensure they're consistently applied across the development corporations as well as the TVCA. And then what accountability measures will be followed if a decision is found later to have not followed those principles. So I think that was the first one on governance. I think we need to make sure moving forward that the TVCA is embedding these principles, and I think I mentioned to you earlier, about our concerns that the principles of accountability are really embedded in the whole organisation. It's not, with those staff who aren't necessarily from a public sector background, for example, and those kind of things, so making sure that it's absolutely embedded, but how are we going to monitor that really? The key decisions, the financial threshold of the 500,000, I'd like to know a little bit more. I mean, Jodie's put in the report about, because of the best value notice, that he's considered the lower threshold. I'm concerned a little as the impact on officers in terms of managing that. I'm concerned a little bit in terms of the 24 hours notice. I mean, I love the idea of having 24 hours notice of a key decision, but I'm concerned about how officers are going to manage that, because the feasibility of getting it out in 48 hours is tricky enough. So I think, you know, we need to strike the balance between scrutiny and your ongoing day-to-day job.
But that'd be the job of the chief executive to ensure the educated service to ensure that happens.
I also am concerned when it talks about the threshold being lowered because of the best value notice. What happens when TBC isn't under best value notice anymore? Does that threshold then automatically goes up? What kind of mechanism are we going to have in place to move that, or what to change that in future? And then calling. Shall I come on to calling now?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. I think my real concern is ensuring that we have a criteria that or what criteria is used to decide when calling is justified. We had a particularly disappointing experience, which I'm not going to harp on about, but we need to know who is making that decision and how that decision is made. I think that needs clarifying and making really clear in the...
Well, you're asking if the call is accepted or not? Who makes that decision?
Who makes those decisions about whether it's accepted or not? I think there's a particular section on section 4B, which I've written down is on page 30, or if you're on your computer, or it's on page 12 of this section if you're on paper. And I'm just going to find it on mine. It's section, I think it's 4.2B. I'm just going to find it for me. So it talks about key decisions, and it says a key decision means a decision which, in the view of overview and scrutiny committee, is likely to, and then on 4.2b it says it be significant in terms of its effects on people living or working in an area comprising 2 or more local authority areas. So that, I'm a bit confused by that section really, and I want to know whether that decision kind of falls to the chair of overview and scrutiny committee. Does it fall to the whole scrutiny committee? You know, how does that work? It doesn't make any sense in terms of what else has been talked about in terms of key decisions. So I think I want some clarity on that, how that's going to work. I think that's it for now.
Okay.
I think my notes kind of are relying on a response from Jodie, but obviously he's not here, so yeah, so I think we're there for now.
Okay, thank you.
I think that 4.2 in particular just doesn't make any sense if it's saying it goes to overview and scrutiny committee.
We'll come to you soon then, I'll just, because there's other people, I'll start with Councillor Francis.
Thanks very much. My main concern really is on definition of key decision, and specifically the very final point, any decision relating to the acceptance of funding. This, it seems to me, goes to heart of one of the key problems. Is funding came in from the government to the TBCA, eventually was spent at Tees Works, and we know that part of that funding went into the pockets of 2 developers who made a large amount of money out of Tees Works. Now, when we started asking questions about that, we got a barrier put up. It was told this really wasn't the responsibility of TBCA, this was a separate company, it was commercial sensitive, all the other kind of things. It meant that we were not able to question how public funding was used. That's the real issue about there, it's the use or misuse of public funding. And therefore I would like clarity on that issue that talks about any decision relating to the accepting of funding. First of all, what funding we're talking about. We're talking about government funding, we're talking about funding from other institutions that are non-governmental, and therefore that we're put in a position whereby if government funding is coming in, we're in a position to get answers. That to me is the fundamental issue here. I don't know whether other people agree with me on this. That's what I would like clarifying. So long as that's clarified, I'm happy.
You've got a note on that, yeah? But we'll take that, Jody.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Councillor Kerr?
Yeah, I'm just very concerned. Given the time scale, we've got 3 weeks before Cabinet meets. Geordie's ill, be a few days before he's better, and then he's going to look at these, and then that'll be another week, so that drops it down to 2 weeks. Then there's going to be an online meeting, which a lot of people won't be able to attend. We're coming up to Christmas, it's a busy time for everybody. Can we not defer this to the next meeting?
Well, can I say that it's not a decision for this committee. We're not making a decision because we don't make decisions. The Cabinet makes decisions in this part. So we're just considering the report. So we can't defer it as such.
I think, Councillor Kane, I'll just, in the absence of Jodie, we do have the Deputy Monitoring Officer, and we could arrange a meeting there. I think we were suggesting more Jodie because this is obviously a report from himself and he understands what he's put in. But on an interim, if there's anything that we can answer based on the questions today, I'll sit down and work with them, and then anything extra, we can get answers out from Jodie when available. But as Councillor Blake has just put across, this is a consultation on the item going to Cabinet. So if we want to try and get these items out and concerns raised in the public forum, we can then obviously seek to try and put some answers out.
I just feel it's being rushed through, that's all.
No, it's
really do. Can I?
Tom, first.
I think it's a fair point. So I'll take away to have a conversation with Jodie, because I guess there is one option that we push this back to a later Cabinet meeting. I think the last thing Jodie or I would want is taking this into Cabinet if the committee didn't feel like they'd had a proper chance to air their views and have any concerns addressed. So let me say that away. I won't commit anything now, but I think the principle of making sure you've had an opportunity to sit down with Jodie and have any concerns addressed is really important.
Thank you, we appreciate that, thank you.
I was just about to say, the other thing as well is that I'm going to Cabinet on the 12th of December as well, so if we do have still some outstanding issues, if it does come, then I can make sure that I relay them, so please feed it into me as well. All right.
Councillor Key?
Thank you, Chair. I've read through this and it's quite benign to me from the standpoint it's listed everything I think that we as a committee over the last year, with the complaints we've had and everything else we've put through, it seems to encompass that. I know there are a couple of points that councillors have, and that's fair dude. I think we should look at it. The biggest thing for me on the whole is if we see or get sight of upcoming decisions prior to them being made and no afterthoughts. I think that was one of the big things we discussed at our last meeting that needs to be built into this, that we do see better sight of the decisions that are coming up. And to David's point around, I think we've got negative vibes still in this committee, even after three or four different reviews of how money was spent in the past, and I don't think that still in any, even the way the question was put, it was quite negative. That was all done and dusted, and the money was allocated, and I think the principle that was raised by David is right though. I think if we see sight of the decisions coming up when money comes in, as to where that money is being allocated up front, then I think it takes away some of the concern that the councillor has. And it's some of the concern that I would have as well. So taking this and the whole of what we've discussed, what's been implemented, what they're talking about doing and the changes, I think we're in a much better position than we were a couple of years ago. And I would think if the openness and transparency that we do expect now, then I think that should help us at least see the flows of the money when it's channeled in and how those decisions are getting made when it's getting allocated. So for me, I'm quite comfortable with this as the proposals are, given the whole that we've discussed over the past 18 months. That's what I'd say, Chair.
Pre-decision scrutiny is top topic right across councils and authorities, which is why we set up rapporteurs, if you like, where they would get into the details of what's happening in advance in their subcommittees or task and finish groups, etc., etc. So we put a lot of work into this. Connor, himself, and Geordie. These agreements, it hadn't been just done overnight, and which is why I'm bringing the rapporteurs, because that was all discussed. The rapporteurs will be taking the lead in each individual department, and they should know what's happening in that department, and that's the whole idea of it.
And I think, Chair, that'll be the biggest red flag we'll see if we suddenly start hearing one of our representatives coming back and saying, I asked a question about this money, and I never get a satisfactory answer. And I think, those red flags, that's the likes of one of the councillors are going to the cabinet meetings, then it's on them to let us know that there is a red flag. And I think getting that earlier sight kind of releases me to be a bit more comfortable that we will get more openness in the future, because it's that foresight that allows you to do the pre-questioning, so that when the decision's getting made, you've already questioned it, you already understand it, rather than the decision's made and then you see money going out and nobody knows how it's been done. And I think if that change happens, then for me, I'm comfortable with this, to be quite frank. And it's up to us as a group and our representative going to Cabinet to bring back that red flag of, I hadn't heard about this, or they never answered the question. We raise it here and then we can take it up. And I think that's why the safety net for me is the fact that we get sight. If we don't get sight of it, then I think that's where we start to question it.
Totally agree with you. Which is why we've now got the agreement that a representative from this committee attends Cabinet. I'm not here on the 12th of December, so which is why Rachel's going. But I totally agree. Councillor?
Yeah, I think regardless of what's happened in the past, I think this article is the first part of rebuilding trust between us and we do need to get it right, which is why I think it would be useful to feedback from Jodie or to and from Jodie and potentially delay that decision if need be, because I think we've all got experiences that we want to improve the scrutiny that's happened in the past, or the blocks that have been put in front of us in the past. So I think this is one of the reasons why this is so important to be done right and for us to do it right, because it's about rebuilding trust within our communities and for our communities, but also between us and the TVCA. And I think fundamentally, our experience with the calling, earlier this year is it was deemed wrong because it wasn't, the Constitution was wrong. So this is the first step in getting the Constitution right, and hopefully it will feed into the other steps of the Constitution, which I'm sure Tom will be busy with.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chair. Rachel sort of hits the nail on the head there. Having been involved with this Auditing and Scrutiny Committee from day one, and understanding the challenges that have happened from day one to present day, there's an opportunity here to rectify, or not rectify, to ensure the principles of good scrutiny are here and working at the Tees Valley. We've been on the cusp of that happening on several occasions, and no disrespect to any officers in this building, and I mean that seriously. We had a meeting a couple of years back, and it was about the Constitution, and things were agreed and said, and this is correct, that's correct. Left the meeting thinking we'd made progress, and we hadn't. And I don't think there's been enough input from this section of the TVCA's committee meetings to fully understand the changes that are needed and being put forward within the Constitution. We talk about honesty and openness and transparency and all that, We've been doing that for years. Them's been key words, and they always are. But then it doesn't seem to feel that way when Scrutiny are trying to ensure that things are happening in a right and proper way, or to do value checks on behalf of 700,000 people out there. So I don't want this committee and members around this table to miss the opportunity to ensure that the next stage is beneficial, is working between all parties, Cabinet, Scrutiny, officers, the general public, to move us forward. And then the purposefulness of this committee will improve. And the feeling of members having a worthwhile contribution and being able to influence or represent the residents out there properly in this room, in this building, will feel honest and open. We shouldn't miss this opportunity. And I'll say this now, I would be tempted that if this goes to Cabinet, to ask members to call it in, if that means we get that debate. I'd like it without doing that, but I would be tempted to say this to this committee is that important about how we work. We need to sit round the table and we need to do it openly and in an atmosphere that's conducive with moving forward.
No, I agree. If Jodie was here, then a lot of questions would be answered. It's just sad that he's not. You know, it's just circumstances, isn't it?
I absolutely get what you say, Councillor Hazelton, and obviously we can't turn back the clock, but you've got a commitment from me and from Jodie to move forward in a positive way, and the last thing I want to do is take anything to Cabinet that this committee feels uncomfortable with, still has unanswered questions on, because that isn't conducive to what you've just described. So we need to find a way to make sure before this goes to Cabinet that the committee feels like they've had an opportunity to debate it, you've had any concerns addressed, so that when it goes to Cabinet, Councillor Creevy, who's there, can speak positively that this committee feels like it's the right thing and it's covering what you need to cover. I don't want to walk into Cabinet with you feeling that it's still not addressing your concerns, because that's not going to help any of us.
But you have to bear in mind the whole report was written to improve decision making for this committee, so we can see the decisions that have been made, what have been made, and why they were made. That's the whole point of the whole report, is to get more information to this committee. It's not for the help of Cabinet, to help this committee.
Sorry, other members have got questions, so I'll let them go first.
Yeah, Councillor Nelson.
I didn't know whether, so Councillor Nelson first, right?
Thank you, Chair. Personal observation is that, having been involved in this for something like 18 months now, I think there's actually an opportunity come out of this best value notice period, that it's been refreshing for me to hear comments that I've heard this morning, certainly from outside of the room, that we do have an opportunity here to create our own new baseline with what I'm experiencing is good support from officers, good support from colleagues. My concern is about the timing. Colin's going to have to get these papers out a week on, 2 weeks on Friday, something like that. And I do think we need to be looking at this a little bit more closely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beale.
Yeah, I think I first signalled when we were at the feeding in the questions and information into the process. I'd much preferred, matters. I'm a bit of a stickler for, some of the where the commas are and the dots are on these things at times, and because I looked at the legal implications in the covering report, not what we were agreeing, and I went down to 7.9 in that, and I thought, is that the case? The monitoring officer can, and then he doesn't follow English, the following changes. Required to be made to remove any inconsistency, typos, yeah, I understand that. Technical things, maybe that don't materially affect the constitution, understand that. But then there's a one which says, required to be made so as to put into effect any decision of the mayor or committee, subcommittee, or officer exercising delegated powers. And I'm thinking, well, if you apply some perverse logic to that, as I often do, is if I'm one of those fall within that category and I do that, you just change the constitution to me what I've done, not me not apply the constitution to what I've done. You know, it gives an expression like in relation to the constitution, a minor variation. One word can actually impact the effect on something on the constitution. And I just think all constitutional changes, even some of them in retrospect, or just to fulfill those things, need to go back into governance, you know, and to say, yeah, we're okay with them. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. We're okay with them. And I don't know whether that's part of the decision-making protocol, because I couldn't find the detail in it, or whether that's something that already exists in the Constitution. And I would have liked to have had a discussion about that.
I'll let Conor answer that, but let me say, all monitoring officers and councils have that discretion. They're certainly doing our council, Middlesbrough Council, they have discretion to correct or to do slight changes to the Constitution. That's quite common practice. But I'll let Conor.
Yeah, so I think obviously this is the challenge where you have become a report that then has elements that are amending the Constitution and sort of refers back to itself in some capacity, but as Councillor Blades has just said there, it is a power within the Constitution and is carried across, but Tom had rightly said earlier, this is so more urgent to be amended, and then there will be the wider Constitution review. And if you recall at the last meeting, Jody made clear that he wants us to go on that journey, especially on the wider piece of the Constitution. It's just out of everything, this is the one that needs something sorted sooner, because as has been identified, there's a significant challenge when it comes to determining what a key decision is, where there is no financial implication noted with it. Significant finance, £5 to someone could be significant, 200 million could be significant, so there's some elements that need to slot into place to just help us out, but feel free to keep noted that you think there is challenge within that area for when we come to actually review that area of the Constitution.
That's fair enough if we get another bite of the cherry, as it were. It needs a bit of thinking that, you know, required to be made. So any monitoring officer is authorised to make a change to the Constitution, required to be made so as to put into effect any decision of the mayor or committee, subcommittee or officer exercising delegated powers. And I'm just wondering whether that just gives a bit too much delegation to the monitoring officer, you know, in terms of the scope that could be applied to.
Yeah, I think we need to take that one away, and George needs to look at that, and we need to discuss that further, just to make sure again that you're comfortable with what that encompasses and what it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agree. Right. Anyone else got any comments I want to give in advance, so Geordie can get answers to before. Sorry, Rachel. Yeah.
So can I then propose that we postpone it going to Cabinet? Can we postpone it going to Cabinet, or can we request that it gets postponed?
I would say in this situation where the recommendation was for the committee to consider and provide feedback, that your feedback to the monitoring officer alongside your questions is that the committee would wish for the item to be, if possible.
Adjourned.
Yeah, so in terms of the committee can't outright refuse the Cabinet consider it, but is in.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
On the papers.
Your response is that
You can't
the committee
abuse
wishes
the
for it to
chair
be
of this
delayed.
DTC, can you?
Right.
Well, that's true.
Well, let's do that then.
So that's a recommendation. Can we agree on that recommendation? Is that we're going to request?
Yeah, change a word that Conor said. We are requesting that it be deferred.
All we can do is request.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, Rachel will be attending the cabinet meeting, and she'll speak on behalf of the committee.
If it doesn't get deferred,
We can see there's obviously progress. If a scrutiny member can attend the cabinet meeting now and speak, wonders will never think, and anything is possible.
We do that in all cabinet meetings now.
Well, I know that. I'm being facetious.
I think the only caveat I'd want to consider here is just on the sense of if we can get these meetings in place and have the conversations with Jodie and you feel satisfied, if we only put request it be deferred, that's the only response going back. So would you like to put in a caveat of
deferred until consultation and...
Yeah, so in the sense of for determination by the chair and the vice chair that if the committee feels satisfied, I can still go ahead, because I just don't want to leave it concluding that it's just deferred if we're going to do some activity between now and then.
If we manage to get
This is one of the reasons why I wanted changing. Well, not changing, but agreeing.
Yeah.
Because then we get clarity on the way the processes work. This committee hasn't voted on it. This committee said we would like it to be deferred until further consultation with members is fine.
Yeah.
But to word it any different then, after what this committee asked for, or allowing that change, isn't constitutional.
Yeah, but can I say that the cabinet can
No, they still do it.
Yeah, absolutely. They can totally ignore our request.
I know that, well, I get
go
that,
for it anyway.
which will send a lovely message, won't it?
Well, depending, I guess, what Rachel says on the day of the cabinet. I mean, if we've made progress before that day, and
Yeah. So
we've informed Rachel that we're happy now, and then
so the
on the day Rachel could then say, yeah.
Can I come back? So the steer I'll take from here is that if it's discussed at that cabinet meeting still on the 12th, then the steer from me, or that I'm getting, is that if we haven't managed to have a further discussion with Jodie and clear up our concerns, then I will relay that to the cabinet.
Can we ask the cabinet to do that? Cabinet to defer the decision back to consultation?
Well, I'll do my best. Yeah, I'll do my best. I mean,
Chair, is it not simpler just to pull it from the agenda?
We don't have the power. We don't have the power to do that.
No, I know we can't do it, but the request is for it not to go up the next round, but maybe the one after.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got a commitment from me. So I absolutely get the principle of you being comfortable with what goes to cabinet. I'm absolutely in agreement with. How we do that, I just need to have a conversation with Jodie. But I absolutely take the point. And if we need to and we can put it to a later cabinet, we'll do that. You need to have a chance to speak to Jodie and have all of this out on the table and be comfortable with what goes to cabinet. That's absolutely right.
But let's be clear that it may well be that it's going to cabinet regardless on the 12th, and we're not in a position to stop it. And so it might well, even though we'll try and put it off, it might not happen. It might go ahead anyway. But I would say Council Creevy will be at the cabinet anyway.
But I wouldn't, as Chief Exec, I wouldn't want it going into cabinet if we hadn't given you the opportunity to have those conversations. So that's what I'm taking away.
I'll do Councillor Kay first, and then we'll move over you then.
I think, I mean, personally, I'm quite comfortable. I don't think we have to have a deferral. I think having another meeting would be good for clarification with the officer. And if anything comes out of that, then you could maybe have a problem. But I don't see anything serious enough to hold it up myself, because we've been talking about this now for the last 6 months. We've been through meetings with the consultation with different groups. And if something's seriously amiss, I'm surprised it hasn't been raised before. And if it's just minor details or a point of clarification, I'm quite sure that could come before this goes to cabinet. And that's where my confusion is. If there's something so serious that people have real concerns about what we're doing here, then I think we should raise it now, if it's that serious, and have this meeting in between times for clarification. But I don't think we should be stopping it going to cabinet, because it just makes me feel as though we've not raised these critical issues.
We're not making progress.
And we shouldn't have knitted it into where we have, and that's down to us. It's not down to anybody else. And I feel as though that just makes us look as though we're holding things back for the sake of holding things back, to be quite frank about it. But I understand people have concern, and we need to get those concerns raised. But I thought either this meeting or the next meeting we should be able to fix that. And it's just unfortunate that the chair, the person isn't here, the cabinet member's not here. So I would not wish to hold this up and go into Cabinet because we may have some concerns that we've never raised before, or we need clarification. And if we get this other meeting in, I would hope that goes, and then obviously a representative can relay that at the Cabinet meeting.
I agree. To bear in mind that the best value notice on the combined authority states that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee must improve at pace. Putting things off for months on end isn't moving at pace. And that's just a fact. So I tend to agree with you. Can I vote on Lynn first? I'll come to you, David, first.
I mean, I'm comfortable either way. I would like to think that Geordie's well enough to have a meeting before it goes to Cabinet. If we can air out some of the concerns, then I agree. I think we should take it to Cabinet. If it doesn't go to Cabinet, I'm just wondering around this 7.12 where it says we want to reduce the threshold. It's a key decision. If the full report doesn't go, are we saying as a committee, because it's important we talk about finance all the time and scrutinising what's spent, do we want to get that through anyway? Can you just take pieces out of this and say we want to discuss this part further, but we agree that this part can go to the 500,000 threshold? But I'm quite comfortable either way if we can have a meeting with the Geordie first, then it goes to Cabinet.
I think, as we've said, myself and Tom will work with Jodie to try and get some of these queries in front of them and try and arrange a meeting. In terms of the specifics of taking a single paragraph, the way in which this has been presented is that it's an article in separation, so it would be adopted in whole rather than a specific amendment. So my understanding is that it would be the whole thing that would be adopted rather than necessarily little smaller areas to approve. But as said, we will look to arrange something as soon as possible.
Councillor Branson, I'll take Councillor Branson, then we'll move on to the next, because I'm conscious of the time.
Yeah, I tend to think that what we should do is have a session where we clarify the issues and then just let it go to Cabinet. I think if there are serious problems that come up, we'll come back to it, won't we, and say sorry, we got it wrong, rather than delay the process.
Thank you. Right. So I think can we vote on that agreement that we'll see we make progress, and we'll if we can delay it, and we will. If not, subject to everyone agreeing and Rachel getting the pointer, we'll take it to Cabinet on the 12th.
Are we agreeing that if we can't get a session in with Geordie, we defer it, but if we can and we're all happy?
But it might not be Geordie, it might be the Deputy Monitoring Officer or even Connor.
We're all happy that our concerns have been raised.
We don't have the power to, we can recommend deferral, but it doesn't mean not be deferred.
It's the Cabinet who make the decision.
I think we just...
Yeah, I agree. So can we all agree on that, please? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Maybe all right. I'm not 100% certain on what have we just agreed?
What we've agreed is that we're going to have a further meeting before Cabinet, and if we can agree to accept proposals, Rachel will come to Cabinet and explain that. If we don't, then Rachel will come to Cabinet and explain the decision that the committee has got. So, you know, we recommend that we don't approve it, then she'll do that. I'm quite sure on the 12th.
Can we just confirm in terms of the meeting that this can still be an informal meeting? Because obviously if we have to meet to have a quorum...
Yeah, it'll be a Teams meeting, it'll have to be a Teams meeting.
As you're aware, that was the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, are you happy with that, Ian?
And sorry, can I just confirm then? So if we don't manage to get that informal meeting to discuss our concerns, are we?
Then
if
do
we
you
go to
recommend
Cabinet,
that
then I'll ask if they can defer it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks. That's great.
Again, I come back to the concerns that members have, and they're genuine concerns, I get that, but are they serious enough to do that? Because if they had been, I would expect them to have been raised months ago or weeks ago or whatever. I mean, if it's just clarification, and I understand things like Edward's points, But if it's just clarification, then that's a less, that's less of a hurdle to get over for cabinet to go in for Councillor Rachel to put in at cabinet. I know we've got. I think the biggest thing here is to make sure that everybody's happy that going forward this is the right constitution. Yeah, and if there are serious concerns, and we've missed it already, if it's just points of clarification, I'm just worried that we're going to hold stuff up for minor issues or for minor clarifications and we don't need.
Can I come back? So Andy, I think my concerns are not just minor clarifications. My concerns are that there are contradictions in here that contradict themselves, and we need confirmation as to whose responsibility that is and who not. So I do think I'm not comfortable with sitting in a room with Cabinet and saying, yeah, we absolutely agree with this, when I'm actually not comfortable that we've had the answers on that. So there might be minor things, I don't know, but decides whether they're minor or not, but I am concerned enough.
And that's something, I know they're genuine concern, I'm not trying to delist them, but in the whole scheme of things and everything we've been doing this last while to get this thing up to a level where, I mean, I think it's a reasonably good document. If we take it at face value the way it's been through, then I think we've achieved a heck of a lot. But as Councillor Edwards says, getting somebody going to the cabinet, fantastic to get our views across. I just think, well, let me just leave it at that and say, hopefully this meeting comes and we get our concerns addressed. That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
It's just unfortunate that Jodie's not here today.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Conor will be in touch hopefully with a date for a Teams meeting. And we'll move on to Article 6, Overview Scrutiny Improvement Plan and Work Programme. Conor?
Thankfully, I can go into a bit more detail on this one. So as you're aware, at the last meeting we agreed the new process, the terms of reference and inclusion of the rapporteurs. Obviously that's still subject to terms, but it seems like we might change it a bit more there. So there's a lot of detail provided by Jodie effectively on the enhancement plans and improvement areas. I'll still try speaking. So it goes into quite some detail, and I'll take it largely as read. What I provided in the appendices, and I will note that there's an issue with the recommendation on the first page. It says Appendix B rather than A, where I've tried to put a more detailed work programme that flows more like a forward plan for the committee. So as you agreed a 2-year period, I've put in indicative areas, and unfortunately if you haven't printed in colour, it won't show the red dates on them, but effectively just trying to provide more details and put more information in for you, and it's clear what's going to be going to the committee ahead. And I believe that's just the general spiel, so back over to you, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. I think the report is read. Did anyone got any issues on what we agreed, Councillor Beale?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it in passing there about the use of that French word.
Yeah, we might not use that moving forward.
I thought we'd had a discussion last time and we came out with thematic scrutiny league.
But we didn't agree. I think.
I'm proposing it.
Right. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's worse than rapporteur. but the members think. I mean, it's a name. I mean, are we really that concerned about what we call it?
I think if we may not be, but if you talk to somebody, I think it's clear that you'd have to explain what a rapporteur was, whereas it's the functions in the title, thematic scrutiny league.
Right. Has anyone got any issues with that?
No, I agree.
Yeah, we'll take that as a motion then, Councillor Beale, and second by Lynn. Can we agree on that? Okay, thank you. Right. Thank you very much. Delegated decisions. As you can see, the delegated decision today, moving forward, hopefully key decisions will be a lot more clearer. Delegated decisions, and I have in front of me the delegations of the scheme of delegations. What we don't have in the Constitution is a scheme of delegation for the Mayor. So we'd like to see one, and if we haven't got one, I've asked officers and can't seem to find one, if we could actually produce one. So this committee is aware of what the Mayor is entitled to do and what he's not entitled to do.
Just told you this morning.
Kind of, yeah. I'd like to see.
Why, be very clear. Leave everybody else alone and pick on me.
Yeah. What I'd like to see is that in the Constitution is an area which states what the mayoral powers, because we don't have that in writing anywhere.
And the difference between the Constitution and the mayoral powers, because they use mayoral powers to stop our calling.
Well, that's why we need to have it in writing exactly what the so we're aware of what powers.
I'm not very facetious, don't be mischievous.
Councillor Keane.
The last meeting explained that it wasn't actually he didn't use his mayoral powers for that. There was a contribution from one of the cabinet members that said that they needed, it would be better if they get deferral because they'd already a group in there. So it wasn't just the mayor using his power of veto, I think.
Yeah, he can stop things.
On that particular point, but that veto that was done with that was because he wanted some further information about the actual veto.
Sorry, I don't
I remember. I'm asking because my memory was that there was a...
You're talking about the youth forums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a separate issue, as you see, yeah.
Okay, so I apologise.
Yeah, I think we've got a scheme of delegation for officers, so we're aware what officers can and can't do. Although I'm also aware that this has to be changed if the previous article key decision making comes into place. This will have to be looked at anyway because some of it contradicts key decisions. But Tom's aware of that, and so is Jodie. So that will be rewritten anyway. But what we don't have is a scheme of delegation for the Mayor. And I think if we had one, that at least we can all read and be aware of what powers the Mayor's got, and then there's no confusion. But I think there is some confusion at the moment on the power of what the Mayor has.
We'll take that as an action sheet.
Thank you. Anybody else got anything on delegate decisions? No, thank you. Date and time of the next meeting, Wednesday, 14th of January. I'm away for 2 weeks in December, which is hence why Councillor Creevy will be chairing anything that might happen from this Friday till the 14th of December. Okay, thank you, and thanks for your attendance.
Sorry, what's the last bit on the agenda? It goes through projects.
No, we've done delegate decisions.
Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So just for clarity, the delegate decisions are provided in summary for the committee's awareness. So obviously any key decisions that are made, subject to this being changed to 24 hours, would be provided to the committee as soon as practical, whereas these are any decisions outside of that flow of information.
Just so members are aware of what all the decisions that have been made within the authority are written in there. So technically we should read them in advance, and then we come to this meeting if we've got any queries on any of the delegate decisions.
Sorry, I didn't
realise.
I thought we were having a bit more discussion because obviously how much information do we get on these projects?
That was the first article. That's the whole point of the first article that we're taking to committee on the 12th. Is how much information we get and when we get it.
And also.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the first part of the.
I mean, that means nothing to me. But
that's the way it's always been done, and then we're actually changing that and technically with the first article. So that'll have to continue until it's been agreed, obviously, in cabinet. Yeah.
But the sooner we get it through, the better. Then.
Yeah. Well, that's the point of the meeting now. Yeah. Thank you. Right, we'll see you all on the 14th of January. Have a nice Christmas in the meantime. Thank you very much.
Thank you.